All right, let's take a trip back in time, shall we? We're heading to 18th century Edinburgh. And this isn't just any city of stone and slate. Oh no. This is a city that was literally forged by fire and ice. A capital city whose entire personality was shaped by the wild volcanic landscape it was built on. And this quote, man, it just nails it. In Edinburgh, everything, and I mean everything, power, the way the city's built, the social structure, it all starts with the rock right under your feet. The geology here isn't just some pretty backdrop, it's the main character in our story. So first up, we've got to get our heads around this incredible geography. We're going to see how ancient volcanoes basically laid the foundations for the city, and then how medieval walls came along and locked it all in to this really unique and kind of challenging shape. At the very heart of it all is this, Castle Rock. Now, this isn't just a big hill, it's the super hardened core of a volcano that died out ages ago. It juts up 300 feet, which made it the perfect spot for a fortress you couldn't attack. And because of that, it became the absolute center of everything, geographically and politically. And this, right here, shows you the power dynamic in a nutshell. You have the castle, this constant, looming reminder of authority, of the king, of the army, of who's in charge. And then you have the city itself, literally clinging to the side of the rock, living every single day in that castle's shadow. You can really feel how packed in this city was. It was surrounded by these old medieval walls, so it couldn't spread out. So what did it do? It grew up. This created this incredibly dense forest of tall stone buildings, all jammed together. You can almost feel this constant push and pull, the feeling of being trapped versus the dream of the open land just outside those walls. Okay, so let's shift gears. We're going to zoom in from that big, wide view and get right down into the thick of it, into the city's main artery, the loud, chaotic, and totally crowded Royal Mile. You gotta understand, the High Street was the absolute spine of the city. It was like this central nervous system, and it connected the two main poles of power. You had the military force of the castle at the top and the royal home, Holyrood Palace, at the bottom. Everything and everyone in Edinburgh crossed paths right here. And just imagine the scene. It was a total melting pot. You'd have lawyers in their fancy wigs walking right past servants dragging barrels of ale. You'd hear merchants yelling about their goods, see laborers pushing carts, and a soldier in his bright red coat just watching it all. It really was Edinburgh's public stage, and everybody was on it. Okay, let's get even more granular. Let's look at just one building. This kind of breaks down how society was stacked vertically. Down on the street level, you've got business, someone like a James McDonald selling hot pies and beer. But then look up, right above his shop, you've got families living, literally, one on top of the other, floor after floor. Each level was its own little world, all crammed into one building. So the High Street is this buzzing public world. It's the big show. But that was only one side of Edinburgh. So what happens when you duck into one of those little alleyways? What happens when you step off the main stage? And this is where we're going next. We're diving into the shadows, into the hidden closest. This was a completely different world, and it was just a few feet away from that main, bustling street. So you're probably asking, what exactly is a close? Well, it's one of these super narrow alleyways that shoots off the main road, and it leads back into these hidden courtyards. In these dark, cramped spaces, this is where the poorest people in the city had to live. And the difference between life here and life out on the Royal Mile, it's just night and day. People were living in underground cellars. Sunlight was something you barely saw, just maybe a thin sliver of it between the tall buildings. Smoke was everywhere, all the time. And privacy? Forget about it. That wasn't a right, it was a luxury that almost nobody here had. Okay, let's zoom back out for a second. We've seen the social layout, but what about the politics? What about the military presence that was just everywhere, that controlled everything? And to get that, you have to know this date, 1707. This was the year of the Act of Union, when Scotland and England were officially joined together. That Union flag flying over the castle? It wasn't just for decoration. It was a huge, powerful symbol that everyone saw every single day of this new reality. But here's the thing, that union, it was shaky. After the Jacobite rebellions, these were attempts to put the old Stuart kings back on the throne, the British government kept a lot of troops stationed in Edinburgh. Their job was pretty simple, keep things under control, and stamp out any spark of another rebellion. And this is what's so interesting. It created this split personality in the city. Depending on who you asked, those soldiers in the redcoats were either protectors, the guys who made sure there was peace and order, or they were occupiers, a foreign army there to enforce a rule that a lot of people really, really hated. So when you put all these pieces together, the geology, the cramped living, the politics, what do you get? You get a city that's completely caught in the middle, a place trapped between what it used to be and what it was desperately trying to become. And man, this quote just says it all. Edinburgh in the 1700s was, at its heart, a medieval city. You could see it in the walls, the closes, the density. But at the same time, these new ideas of the Enlightenment, of reason and order, were starting to bubble up. You could feel the city just straining at the seams, trying to break free of its own history. And this table really breaks it down for you. On the one hand, you have the medieval past, a city trapped by its walls, a society built in cramped closes, a world of old stone and constant smoke. But on the other hand, you can see the beginnings of a new era, this deep desire to escape, the dream of what's possible beyond the city limits, of clear, open views out to the sea. So it all comes down to this one big question. When a city's entire identity is tied up in its stone walls and the ancient rock it's built on, how does it break free? How does a city escape not just its physical walls, but the walls of its own past to build something new? That was the huge challenge facing everyone in 18th century Edinburgh.